I get it. When you're scrolling through endless options for a mobility scooter, the fear of splurging on something that ends up feeling like a money sink is real. You're probably asking yourself, will this scooter actually handle my daily trips to the grocery store, the doctor's office, and the park without dragging me down? The last thing you want is a ride that looks good on paper but stalls on a curb or feels like a clunky cart on the sidewalk. I've spent the past week sitting in a few showrooms, watching videos, and digging through what owners actually say about the Pride Mobility PX4, just so I could give you a straight-up answer before you click buy. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the PX4 is marketed as a four-wheel, full-suspension scooter that can carry up to 500 pounds and travel about 23 miles on a single charge. Those numbers look impressive, but what they mean in everyday life is what matters. Imagine you weigh 180 pounds and you normally travel with a small bag of groceries or a tote. The scooter's 500 pounds capacity isn't just a brag right, it gives you room to bring a pet carrier, a cooler for a beach day, or a couple of extra bags without worrying about overloading the motor. That extra margin also translates into a sturdier frame, which many users notice when the scooter feels solid while navigating uneven sidewalks or a slightly bumpy driveway. The full suspension system is the first thing I tested on a typical suburban street. The pneumatic tires soaked up the potholes and the slight curb at the end of my driveway, keeping the seat from bouncing like a roller coaster. For people who spend an hour or more on the scooter each day, that kind of smoothness can be a game changer because it reduces the fatigue you feel in your back and shoulders. It's not just comfortable in a vague sense, the suspension actually isolates the rider from the jarring impact of rough pavement, which is something you notice immediately when you compare it to a basic two-wheel scooter that just shudders over the same bumps. One of the newer features Pride has added is an NFC key fob. Think of it like the keyless entry on a car. You tap the fob on the scooter's sensor, and it unlocks the throttle without you having to fumble with a traditional key. For someone who might have limited hand dexterity, that's a practical security upgrade. In real-world use, the fob has a short range, so you still need to be pretty close, no accidental unlocking from across the room. It's a nice convenience, but it also means you need to keep the little device on you. Misplacing it is the only downside I've heard people mention. Battery range is another hot topic. The spec sheet says 23.4 miles, and in my test run mostly flat terrain with a light load I got just over 22 miles before the indicator warned me to charge. That's solid if you typically do a couple of short trips or a single longer outing each day. However, if you live in a hilly area or plan to use the scooter for a full day of errands, you might want to factor in a safety buffer. The charging time is roughly 8 hours, so you'd plug it in overnight and wake up ready to go. It's not a quick charge scenario, but for most users the routine of charging overnight fits nicely into a normal schedule. Now, let's talk about the LED lighting package. Pride equipped the PX4 with a full set of front and rear LEDs, plus side markers. On a dusk walk to the mailbox, those lights gave the scooter a distinct presence, making other pedestrians and drivers aware of your approach. The brightness is enough for low light conditions but not blinding, and the lights are integrated into the frame, so you don't have to worry about them dangling or getting in the way when you're turning. Who should consider the PX4? If you're someone who needs a reliable, medical-grade mobility solution that can handle a heavier load, you'll appreciate the 500 pounds capacity and the FDA Class AI designation, which means it's built to meet stricter safety standards than a regular consumer scooter. It's also a good fit for retirees who enjoy longer rides, perhaps a trip to the community center or a leisurely ride around a neighborhood park, because the suspension and range make those outings less stressful. Families with a senior member who wants to stay active but also needs to bring a few items along will find the seat size, 32 inches wide, and the extra storage capacity very practical. On the flip side, if you're looking for a compact scooter that you can easily fold and store in a trunk, the PX4 isn't designed for that. Its four-wheel design and full suspension chassis mean it's larger and heavier than a fold-up model, so you'll need a garage or a dedicated spot in your driveway. Also, if you live in a city where you're mainly going to use the scooter for short indoor trips like moving between